All the sufferings that we see in the world arise because of our self-selecting attitude, because of our wish to have personal happiness. All happiness that we see in this world arise because of our taking care of the welfare of other human beings. And he further says that there is no need to elaborate on this point. If you judge the difference between the state of the Buddha and an ordinary being, you will easily understand that the Buddha, because he allowed the benefit of other beings and achieved omniscience, capacity to benefit all beings, whereas the ordinary human beings, even though we have tried our best to fulfill our personal values, because of our self-cherishing attitude, not only we did not achieve omniscience, but we are also still in the same existence. And even in the case of those who have achieved just solitude and liberation for themselves, this is also due to self-cherishing attitude. Even temporarily, we think of mental relaxation, calmness of mind, and having a lot of friends and relatives, having trusted friends, living in a place where you are not deceived and pulled by others, and finally the whole benefits of achieving enlightenment. All these are due to cherishing the welfare of other human beings. In other words, you have to use so many faults we have, so many qualities are in us, and from that you find our negativeness of self-satisfaction and advantage of cherishing the because of the practice of cherishing the omniscience and is now the embodiment of the qualities that we, the ordinary human beings, are an embodiment of false because of our self-cherishing attitude. We must realize that today we have this precious and we are free to engage in spiritual practice. Within the practice, the most profound practice is the practice of compassion, for human beings. There is no better practice than this. Therefore, including the Lama, all of us, our Master's River, we make an effort to try to cultivate a compassionate mind in our daily life. All of us, within our mind, cultivating strong confidence, that will bring relaxation in our mind. And if we have that kind of calmness within our mind, even if the whole external environment arises in the form of pain, or the whole external environment becomes hostile, that will not be able to restore your mental calmness. On the other hand, within your mind, if your agitated and disturbed, then your attention is towards other things. And even though others are not having, how you can say, towards you, because of your own attitude, you might fall into others having very harsh and very negative towards you. In other words, you see the reflection of your own mental attitude, your own internal experience. And because of that, you have to lead a life constant worry, anxiety, and instability. Even though you may be quite wealthy and have all the material resources at your disposal, as long as your distress in your mind is not at peace, you may be surrounded by the best of friends and relatives, but because of your own internal mental attitude, you have no happiness. Therefore, the internal mental attitude plays a very dominant role, and because of this, provided you have calmness of the mind and control of the mind, then even if the whole external environment becomes hostile, you will center oneself. In fact, that person, the whole environment becomes planned, very helpful to enhance mental calmness. There are many reasons for affection to and ignore their welfare and deceive them, then will have negative results. If you really want happiness, then you must realize that your happiness can come by taking care of other people. So therefore, you should not give up the welfare of other people and other sentient beings. And with that kind of mental attitude and practice, you will have happiness. Even if you do not engage in any spiritual or religious practice, provided you have that understanding, the understanding that we have to live interdependently, and then because of that understanding, you will have a peaceful and harmonious life. We are social animals, and we cannot think about living an isolated life without having to depend upon other people or other sentient beings. In all fields of activities, in all walks of life, whether you are a farmer or a businessman, you have to depend on others. Even within the family, you have to depend on the family members. So normally people live together as families and friends. So there are very few exceptional cases like yogis who stay high in the mountain doing isolated practices. Giving exception to this, we are by nature social animals and we are bound to depend on each other. This being the reality, what you have to do is to cultivate concern and close feeling towards other people. Take care of even the wild animals and birds. They also travel together, go together, flock together. They help each other. Particularly take the case of the bee. They do not have a particular legal system. They do not follow any spiritual practice, but for their survival and livelihood, they depend on each other. That is in tune with their natural way of existence. So, in the case of human society, the process is that we must depend on each other. Even though this is the reality, but human beings are too intelligent that we sometimes use the intelligence in the wrong way and we try to exploit each other, which is completely against human nature. So, particularly those of us who profess to believe in a particular religious practice, it is extremely important for us to try to help each other and to cultivate a feeling of closeness. That is the source of happiness in our life. So therefore, the fundamental teaching of Buddha is that you must take care of others more important than yourself. Of course, you cannot completely ignore yourself, but it's not at all good to ignore the welfare of other people, other sentient beings. And particularly if your welfare and the welfare of other people clashes, then you must take other people's welfare more important than your own personal well-being. And particularly if you compare yourself with the rest of sentient beings, the rest of the sentient beings are just countless, and you are just one person. Your suffering and your happiness, even though may be important, but it is the suffering and happiness of just one individual person, whereas the happiness and suffering of the rest of the sentient beings are just immeasurable, they are countless. So it's the way of the wise to sacrifice one for the benefit of the majority, and it's the way of the foolish to sacrifice the majority on behalf of just one single individual. So even from the point of view of your personal well-being, you must cultivate a compassionate mind. That is the source of happiness in life. So irrespective of whether we profess a particular religious practice or not, we must be one-hearted and we must cultivate compassion, and through that way one should lead a peaceful and meaningful life. And in the case of Buddhist practitioner, and particularly Mahayana Buddhist practitioner, how should one engage in practice? And in this regard, even when we talk about helping others, we are not talking about giving them temporary benefits and temporary help, like giving food, clothing, shelter, and so forth. Because this would not bring long-lasting happiness. So now, therefore it is extremely important to find out about the possibility of achieving long-lasting and ultimate happiness. This means one must judge whether it is possible to eliminate suffering from their root. Irrespective of whether one is able to practice or not, one should at least cultivate mental courage, willing to eliminate suffering and achieve a state of total cessation of suffering. So that would bring strong mental confidence and determination. Therefore, as a Mahayana practitioner, I should find that I will help the countless mother sentient beings in removing the sufferings. That should be your pledge. But if you judge your own present capacity, what to talk about being able to help countless sentient beings, you do not have the capacity to help get rid of suffering of every one sentient being. Both in your case and in the case of other people, sufferings arise from individual causes and conditions which are collected by the individual sentient beings. This being the case, it is extremely important that the individual sentient beings must know what is to practice and what is to give up. In other words, what is it that brings suffering and what is it that brings long-lasting happiness. So it is in this regard that one must show the sentient beings the right path that brings happiness and the wrong path that brings suffering. So therefore, when we talk about benefiting other sentient beings, it is through showing the path to the sentient beings and making them understand what is to be given up and what is to be practiced. It is through this way that one can help other sentient beings. And in order to be able to do that, on the one side, it is extremely important that what you are going to teach to other sentient beings should not remain hidden to yourself. That means you must yourself understand the meaning that you are going to teach to other sentient beings, the path that you are going to show to other sentient beings. For example, the more a student is advanced in his or her studies, the more that student should have a teacher that has better qualifications and better knowledge. Likewise, in order to show the right path to other sentient beings, you must first know the path by yourself. And secondly, it is not enough that the path that you are going to show to other sentient beings is not hidden to yourself. You must also be able to know that what you are going to teach to other sentient beings is going to help temporarily and ultimately. You must know that also. Unless you know that, then even if you are trying to help other sentient beings in a sure path with your best of intention, but that may not suit the dispositions and the interests of other sentient beings. So it is not enough simply to say that I am doing this with correct motivation. Of course, if you do it with correct motivation, then there is no need for you to repent. But that it's not a guarantee to say that would help other human beings. And it is because of this, in fact, also explains about the need to actualize the different categories of clairvoyances, being able to know the minds and know the needs of other sentient beings. So therefore there are two reasons. That means first, the path that you are going to show to other sentient beings should not be hidden to yourself. In other words, the teaching that you are going to give to other sentient beings should not be hidden to yourself. And secondly, you must know the dispositions and the suitability of such teaching to other sentient beings. In this connection, you should also be able to know the disposition that the sentient beings have been inheriting from their past lives. And so, therefore, unless you are able to become Buddha yourself and achieve the omniscience by yourself, your health and guidance may prove to be temporary benefit and temporary health and not long-lasting health and benefit. So therefore, you must cultivate an aspiration to help other human beings. So that aspiration becomes a cause, and through that, you cultivate a second wish, wishing to achieve Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. So these are the two levels of bodhicitta. Such a mind is called bodhicitta or altruistic intention to Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Such a mind cannot be cultivated within a few months or a few years. But at the same time, this does not mean that you cannot cultivate such a mind within your mind, provided if you continue with your practice of cultivation of bodhicitta, then gradually a time will come when you will be able to cultivate it. For example, in the initial stage, you may not be able to understand even the meaning of the word bodhicitta. And secondly, you might think that how can I ever be able to cultivate such a mind? But through repeated practice and familiarity, gradually the mind, such a mind, you will become more closer and closer to such a mind. And also it's the nature of conditioned things that change depending on causes and conditions. So what is important is that you must recall the advantages and benefits of such a mind, and recalling the advantages and benefits of such a mind should make a determination and make ardent prayers that you live, walk or sit, you should think, how nice if I could cultivate such a mind. You must try to cultivate such a bodhicitta even at the aspirational level. And if you spend your days through such a repeated practice, definitely you can enhance and develop your mind, refine your mind. And if you make a determination and stubbornly practice on the bodhicitta, time will come when you will be able to cultivate it. You must make a determination to cultivate it, even if you are to spend many eons. As is described in the Bodhicitta Pala, there is a prayer which says that so long as the space endures and so long as sentient beings remain, they also abide, and may I be able to dispel the suffering of all sentient beings. When you engage in a project or when you engage in an activity which helps other sentient beings, then there is no question of time limit. You must do continuously. So it is through such a way that you should train your mind. If you think you can achieve enlightenment or bodhicitta within few days or few months, and even if you think that I will get enlightened after entering into a retreat for 3 years or 3 months, then you are mistaken. Sometimes I jokingly say that sometimes I jokingly tell people that to tell other people saying that if you enter a retreat for 3 years and 3 months, then you will achieve Buddhahood. That is something like a communist propaganda. So jokingly, I sometimes tell my Western friends that they want to practice the most profound, the most quick path. And I tell them that this is a clear indication that you will have no achievement. How can you have achieve something in the shortest way? How can you achieve the most profound and the vast in the shortest way? If you read the history of Buddha himself, also the history says that he achieved Buddhahood enlightenment after 3 countless eons. So if you expect achievement of Buddhahood within 3 years or 3 months, this is a clear indication that you will make no progress. So we have to be practical, and it is no use to pull others using your foolish knowledge. The purpose is to help. One must realize that whether you achieve Buddhahood or do not achieve Buddhahood, your purpose is to help other sentient beings. Whether you stay in the hell or in the heaven, your purpose is to help other sentient beings. It doesn't matter how long your time takes. So one must make a determination that the altruistic intention to achieve Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings is my only practice. Whether I remain alive or I die, this is my sole practice. Such should be your determination. And once you again influential experience of such a mind, then you should receive the Bodhisattva vow. So therefore, Bodhisattva vow should be received after you cultivate a strong wish to engage in the ways of life of the Bodhisattva. So, receiving the aspirational bodhicitta will be done tomorrow morning, and day after tomorrow morning we'll engage in the participation of conquering the Bodhisattva vow. If you ask what are the ways of life of Bodhisattva, the very purpose of cultivation of bodhicitta is for the sake of engaging in the ways of Bodhisattva, ways of life of a Bodhisattva. Omniscience is achieved only through the process of purifying the intellectual emotions within your mind. Omniscience cannot be achieved through mere wishful prayers. We have to train and eliminate all individual and collective emotions by relying on individual counter forces and antidotes. All the activities of a bodhisattva can be condensed into two major categories: the category of practice of method and category of practice of wisdom. In order to make the practice of giving, observance of morality as perfection of giving and perfection of morality, it should be assisted and influenced by the practice of wisdom. Unless you have the practice of wisdom, the practice of the first five perfections, you will not be able to practice of perfections. In order to be able to cultivate such wisdom, first one must cultivate genuine or unmistakable philosophical view, which is called the Madhyamika view. And regarding the Madhyamika view, there are four philosophical tenets within the Buddhist fold, and out of these explanations, first you will find explanation of the grosser level of selflessness, which leads finally to the subtle Madhyamika philosophical view of selflessness of person and the selflessness of phenomena, which is dependent on the interpretation of interdependent origination. Having established such unmistaken correct view of selflessness and emptiness, and having gained good conviction, one realizes emptiness. Even though we have cultivated wisdom realizing emptiness, that will not become forceful counterforce in removing the ignorance if it is not resisted by other practices. So mere practice and understanding of selflessness is not enough to defeat the afflicted emotions. Therefore it is important to cultivate the practice of union of karma binding and special insight. And in order to cultivate special insight, one must first cultivate the karma binding or shamat. In other words, in order to have vipassana, you should have shamat. Shamat or karma binding is one pointed meditation. And especially insight is the practice of cultivation of discriminative evidence or discriminative wisdom. So it is through this practice that you should be able to cultivate a union of karma binding and special insight. And such practice, you will be able to engage in a fruitful practice of cultivation of both method and wisdom. So yesterday we were speaking about yesterday we spoke about two different kinds of bodhicitta, the conventional bodhicitta and the ultimate bodhicitta.
जब हमारे मन में सक्षम हो सकता है, इन चीजों को समझने में सक्षम हो सकता है, और दूसरी ओर ऐसे हम परिश्रम करने के साथ साथ हमारे उपाय जो पुण्य कर्म है,
after generating the conventional bodhicitta, which we explained earlier, which means having cultivated the true expression of bodhicitta, we should then be able to cultivate the ultimate bodhicitta. What is ultimate bodhicitta? The ultimate bodhicitta is transcendental and free from all elaborations. It is the one which is extremely clear and is the object of the ultimate. It is stainless, unwavering, and is like a butter lamp, free of disturbance by wind. What is transcendental and what is mundane? Regarding this, there are various explanations. All the ordinary individual levels are called mundane, and all the spiritual levels of superior Arya are called transcendental or supermundane. One issues that transcendental level when one for the first time is able to see or realize emptiness directly without having the need to rely on the medium. Mere realization of emptiness is possible even before achieving the path of seeing. This text actually belongs to the concept of mathematical text. So when I explain the immediate points referring to the text, it would be so Tantrika Madhyamika, but when I make more elaborate explanations, it will be based on the Prasangika Madhyamika. So even the Aryas or superior solitary realizers, they also realize emptiness. In the case of an Arya of the Sattva path, that Arya being realizes emptiness directly existed by profound practice of method. So such wisdom realizing emptiness acts as a counterforce, removing one of the individual emotions. So when we talk about the Four Noble Truths, the true path actually refers to the wisdom realizing emptiness that is found within the mental teaching of a superior being or Arya. And such ultimate bodhicitta is also called as being free from all elaborations. Particularly when it refers to the various categories of emptiness, like the 16 emptinesses and the 20 emptinesses and the 2 and so forth. In other words, you can have as many categories of emptiness as there are the numbers of phenomena. Whatever be the case, when you reflect on the emptiness of an individual subject or phenomena, then you are also reflecting and realizing the emptiness for all phenomena. The nature of all phenomena are of equal test, and in the nature of emptiness, all are same. Even though in the case of the nature of emptiness, it is all same, and all different aspects of phenomena, something like good, bad, and changes, all this arises from the nature of emptiness, from the sphere of emptiness. And at the same time, you must realize that emptiness cannot be found separate from the subject or the object. In other words, emptiness refers to a state which is merely free from inherent existence. And in other words, things depend on causes and conditions. The very nature of depending on causes and conditions signify that they do not have independent existence, or they lack independent or inherent existence. So this also explains how things arise from the nature of emptiness. So the nature of emptiness or suchness is such that all multiplicity, all different aspects, all various categories that we see and experience, all arise from the nature of emptiness. And when we talk about emptiness, we are not dealing with those different aspects. So therefore, the state of emptiness is being free from those elaborations, those multifarious aspects. That's the meaning of being free from all elaborations. It would also perhaps be explained from the point of view that emptiness is not contaminated, as is explained only once paying homage to about the once paying homage in the fundamental wisdom by Nagarjuna, which says that in that verse it explains about that by paying homage to the Buddha, it says the Buddha taught the dependent arising and taught that all things arise from causes and conditions, and that there is no cessation, and there is no production, and there is no permanence, and there is no going and there is no coming, and there is no separateness, and there is no oneness, and that things are free from elaborations. And from the perspective of dependent arising, or from the conventional perspective, things arise, things can be produced, and things cease. But the meaning of the words explained in the fundamental wisdom means that things do not have production independently, things do not arise independently, things do not cease independently. And in terms of time also, there is no cessation, and there is no permanence. From the point of view of object, there is no going and coming. So there it spoke about 8 categories of elaborations. For example, production and cessation. If you examine that this production and cessation is in the nature of dependent arising, you will find that it is not in the ultimate nature of the dependent arising. And such kind of cessation and production of dependent arising is viewed from the direct perception of the uncontaminated wisdom of an Arya or superior being. These are free from elaborations. Then it is also called the one which is extremely clear. That means that the ultimate condition that refers to the ultimate state, the ultimate reality of an object. The object of the ultimate. In other words, it's an ultimate object, which is the object of engagement of an ultimate wisdom. And it is stainless and unwavering. In other words, the wisdom of superior being in meditative equipoise is a wisdom which is a combination of combining the spatial and sight. And such a combination of abiding and spatial insight is achieved, having first cultivated from abiding, and such a combination is possible once you gain stability towards the object of investigation. And when you are not having your wisdom or mind towards such an ultimate object is not disturbed by conceptual thoughts like mental laxity and excitement, therefore such a wisdom is called unwavering, and therefore
इस जगत में या अपर जगत में जो संस्कृत हम है, जो चीज है, वस्तु है, उनके संख्या के बराबर ही शून्यता होंगे। तो इसलिए शून्यता की ऐसा कोई सीमा नहीं है। तो इसलिए अब यहाँ पर हमारे अंदर ये हमारे जहान के सामने ये जानना जरूरी है कि शून्यता की जो मुख्य सिद्धांत या मुख्य वस्तु जो है वो क्या है। तो इस तरह से है कि एक जो चीज जो है वो इसलिए शून्य है, इसको हम इसलिए शून्य कहते हैं, उस पर शून्यता की विचार जो है इस तरह से लागू होती है क्योंकि कोई भी चीज वो चीज जो है एक चीज को लेकर के हम यदि हम देखेंगे तो एक चीज जो है वो बनता है या कोई चीज जो है वो बिगड़ता है, एक चीज जो है वो उत्पन्न होता है, एक चीज जो है वो समाप्त हो जाता है। तो उसके
this ultimate bodhicitta, which is transcendental and free from all elaborations, how this is achieved is explained in the next line, which says that this is achieved through reverence and the constant familiarity with the yoga of contemplating meditation and penetrative insight for a long time. From the Arya Samdhi Nirmochan, it says that, O Maitreya, you must know that all the virtuous dharma of parents, bodhisattvas, or tathagatas, whether worldly or trans-worldly, are the fruits of come-abiding meditation and penetrative insight. Since all kinds of concentrations can be subsumed into this too, all yogis must at all times seek come-abiding meditation and penetrative insight. Again, the same Arya Samdhi Nirmochana says, the Buddha has said, it must be known that the teachings of various types of concentration sought by my hearers, bodhisattvas and tathagatas, are all contained in come-abiding meditation and penetrative insight. Therefore, in order to achieve such combination of come-abiding and penetrative insight, in other words, the conjoint practice of come-abiding meditation and penetrative insight is achieved through having achieved come-abiding. In other words, in order to achieve special insight, you must first achieve come-abiding meditation. Come-abiding refers to a state of mind where you are able to make your mind stay only on the object of your choice, and the mind does not get distracted to external objects other than the objects of your mental focus in meditation. And it is mind where your mind stays stably on the object, being free from mental laxity and mental excitement. So that mind refers to one-pointed concentration, and through such stability one is able to achieve mental bliss. And special insight means that you get a kind of special insight, you see something special. There are two categories of special insight, modern and transcendental. So there could be different objects for different categories of special insight. Here special insight refers to the mind which focuses on emptiness. Buddha Shakyamuni taught these two practices, come-abiding in special insight, and the practice of come-abiding in special insight in fact is the only method by which you can achieve all levels of concentrations. Therefore, the text says, since both come-abiding and special insight are equally important, you must cultivate these two qualities. The text reads that yogis cannot eliminate obscurations by mere familiarity with come-abiding meditation alone. It only suppresses the delusions temporarily. Without the light of wisdom, the latent potency of the delusions cannot be properly destroyed, and therefore their complete destruction is not possible. Due to this reason, Arya Samdhi Nirmocana says, concentration can suppress the delusion properly, and wisdom can thoroughly destroy the latent potency.
또 충분가 그렇습니다. 용기하래. 근데 지라는 하나씩 뭐가 있는데 어머네 다시 유공무지고 시키야가 처리하래. 내 마음과 지기 난 이거 말해서 비하신다. 그래서 뭐 맞세. 그러니까 통일은 이게 신의 뭐가 있나요? 그러니까 통일은 어떻게 연하지?
Merely meditating on communicating meditation will not be able to eliminate obscurations and afflictive emotions, even if you meditate, or even if you achieve communicating meditation, which refers to emptiness, that alone is not enough to remove the obscurations. So therefore, even meditation, even communicating meditation, focusing towards emptiness, will not be able to remove afflictive emotions if it is not assisted by the practice of special insight.
आवश्यकता इसलिए है कि समाज
To prove this point, Arya Sandhi Nirvachana also says, even if one meditates on such single-pointed concentration, that would not destroy the conception of the self, and delusions would disturb you again. It is like Uddara's single-pointed meditation. Because communicating meditation alone will not be able to remove the afflictive emotions, so that would not help destroy the conception of the self, and afflictive emotions or delusions would arise again and disturb you again. This is the case that is happened with the non-Buddhist, one of the non-Buddhist master called Uddara. Uddara was a non-Buddhist meditator who meditated on the communicating meditation for a long time. And while he was engaging in single-pointed meditation, at that point there was the afflictive emotions did not arise. And he meditated for a long time. He did not get time to tend his hair, and his hair grew very long. And when he was completely lost in single-pointed meditation, some part of his hairs were eaten by the rats. And as soon as he rose from single-pointed meditation and saw that the rats had eaten parts of his hair, he got very angry, and thus the afflictive emotions came back again. And when selflessness of the phenomena are individually examined, and meditation is performed on the basis of that analysis, this is the cause of resultant liberation, and no other cause can pacify. So, individually examining the phenomena, selflessness of the phenomena means that you should also employ the special insight, which is the cultivation of discriminative wisdom, and through that you can be liberated. You cannot employ the other techniques to achieve liberation. It is only by meditating on the selflessness that you can achieve liberation, and no other cause can achieve the state of peace, which refers to the state of nirvana. Also, the Bodhisattva Pitaka says, those who haven't heard these various teachings of Bodhisattva Pitaka and not heard the Vinaya teaching of the superior one, and think that single-pointed concentration alone is enough, will fall in the pits of haughty arrogance, and as such cannot gain complete release from rebirth, old age, sickness, death, suffering, limited on suchness, and that will help you get liberated from suffering. Due to these reasons, those who wish to attain thoroughly purified trance and wisdom by eliminating all obscurations should meditate on wisdom while staying in calm abiding meditation. Arya Ratanakutika also says single-pointed concentration is achieved by adhering to moral ethics. With achievement of single-pointed concentration, meditation on wisdom is done. Wisdom helps to attain perfectly transcendent consciousness. Perfectly transcendent consciousness leads to perfect moral ethics. When you make yourself habituated with the practice of calm abiding and special insight, and through that way you will be able to achieve the first spiritual level of the 10 spiritual levels of Australia. And it is through this way that all your other practices, like practice of morality, becomes perfected.
और विपස්සना
Arya Mahayana Shirda Bhavana Sutra also says, if the sons of good lineages do not abide by wisdom, I will not speak about Bodhisattva's faith in Mahayana or what comes about in relation to Mahayana. This is because Bodhisattva's faith in Mahayana and all that arises in relation to it occur by contemplating the perfect Dharma and reality, the mind free from distraction. It should be understood accordingly. If calm abiding and spiritual insight are so important, and particularly when you lay so much emphasis on spiritual insight, do you mean to say that spiritual insight alone is enough? This is also not true. In order to prove this point, the text says, a yogi's mind would be distracted by the objects when there is only special insight without calm abiding meditation. If you have always special insight and not calm abiding, then your mind will be distracted by the object. And then it will also not be possible to let your mind stay one-pointedly towards one object. As a result of your investigation, the discrimination of the object is done by the discriminative wisdom, and having made the discrimination, you must be able to make your mind stay one-pointedly towards that object, and that would not be possible in the absence of calm abiding. If you are without calm abiding, then it would be unstable like a butterland in wind. Since crystal clarity of transcendent wisdom would be missing, these two should be sought with equal emphasis. Which means that you must lay equal emphasis to what the importance of the achievement of both calm abiding and spiritual insight. Therefore, Arya Mahaparinirbhana Sutta also says, bearers cannot see Buddha nature because their single-pointed absorption is stronger and wisdom is weaker. Even though Bodhisattvas can see, but not clearly, this is because their wisdom is stronger and their single-pointed concentration is weaker. Whereas Tathagatas can see all, because they possess an equal level of calm abiding meditation and meditative insight. By the power of calm abiding meditation, the mind is not disturbed by the wind of conceptual thoughts like a butterland free of disturbing wind. Special insight eliminates every stand of strong views, and thus you will not be affected by others. Chanda Paradipa Sutra says, by the force of Kamya-abiding meditation, mind will become unwavering, and through penetrative insight, it will become like a mountain. In other words, as a result of achievement of special insight, we will be able to engage into penetrative investigation of the nature of the object of meditation. The non-fluctuation of the mind or the unwavering state of the mind is the result of Kamya-abiding meditation. Therefore, maintain a yogic practice of both of them.
आगे भी इन्हीं को समाज और विपස්සना